So in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to use a new function that returns numbers. We have seen two of them already, random and the noise function, and we're going to see a third one now. So let's first draw a few lines across the screen. And I'm going to choose a background color. I will use the color selector. Yes, this one. And I will draw 3 lines. We'll go from the left border of the screen. This will be at 50 to the width of the screen. That's the right border, also at 50. I'm gonna set the size of the screen, 300, 300. And I will draw these 3 lines. This will be a little bit lower. This is 50 pixels from the top, 150 pixels from the top, and 250. So this is what we get. I'm gonna choose a line color, stroke, and this one will be some kind of red. And there it is. And then I will draw some stuff with white color. So I'm gonna make a loop to draw points from the left border of the screen to the right border of the screen. So we've done this before. We start at the left border, x is 0, and we increment x. So we are checking here while x is less than the width. Then we increment x. X equals x plus 1. And so we should draw something here. I will draw here a point at this location, x. That's why we are increasing x. And for now, I'm gonna just draw it at 52, so you see what's happening. So I'm drawing this line at 52 is right under this line, which is drawn at 50 pixels from the top. Here I'm using the line command. Here I'm using a loop to draw lots of points here. And why am I doing that? Well, I just want to show you something. Instead of 50 here, now I will use one of the functions we know for generating numbers, is random. And I can type between -10 and 10. So I have a fixed part, which is 50 pixels, and then I randomly move up or down something between -10 and 10. So we can see this cloud of points, which are around this center. If we go between 0 and 20, then you will see that now the points are below. And if I would type here like -20 to 0, we have a fixed part, which is 50, and then we get a number between -20 and 0. So the total amount here will be between 30 and 50. 50 plus -20 is 30, and 50 plus 0 is 50. So you see now these points are always above this line. So I'm going to leave it here at -10 and 10, and then I'm going to draw other sets of points. Here I'm going to draw some points on top of this line, 150 plus, but now I'm going to use noise. And noise of x. And we know that if we use just, well, let's try it like this, noise of x. You see now, because noise gives us a number between 0 and 1, it's hardly moving. It just moves 1 pixel up and down. That's why we like to multiply this by something, for example, 20. So now I'm using a fixed part of 150 and then a random part which can move between 0 and 20. So that's why it goes down between 150 and 170. And you see you cannot see much difference between noise and random because x is changing too fast. If I divide this by 10, for example, then you start to see a pattern. What happens when you divide here by 10 is the steps become smaller. So we know x is changing 1 unit at a time. X, it begins with 0, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we divide it here by 10, then we get 0, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. I could even divide it by 100. Then the effect is, you can see it's really not changing that much. So it depends on how fast you want this curve to change. And now we get to the new function I want to show you, which is one of my favorite. I'm gonna draw this at 250 down, and I'm gonna multiply it also by 20, and the function is called sine. That's the sine. It's a, let's look in the documentation. I search here for sine, and it calculates the sine of an angle. And the values returned are between -1 and 1. So that's kind of funny because this one gives numbers right now between -10 and 10. Noise gives numbers between 0 and 1. And sine gives numbers between -1 and 1. I'm gonna enter here also x. So I will type here for reference between -10 and 10. This is between, well, I should type here noise between 0 and 1. Random -10, 10 gives a number between -10 and 10. And finally, this sine here, sine x, sine gives a number between -1 and 1. This you have to memorize. You have to know which kind of values you can expect out of these functions. So let's see what's happening now. Now this doesn't look so different from noise. And this is again because we are changing this part too fast. So what happens if I divide it by 10? So now you can see which kind of graph you get here. With the sine function, you can create animations that oscillate. We will do this in a moment. But here you get an idea. And now I can show you what happens when we change this number. If I made 40 instead of 20, then you can see this amplitude is higher. It's a larger amplitude. If you type a small number, the amplitude is small. And what's happening is for the y position of our points, we have a fixed part of 250, which is, and now I closed the program. The 250 is this red line I draw here. That's why I drew this red line. And to this amount, I'm adding 10 times the sine. Sine can be between -1 and 1. So what happens when you multiply that by 10? Then you get -10 and 10. And that's what's happening here. It's moving 10 pixels up, 10 pixels down. So it depends on this number, how much. Now it's moving 20 pixels up, 20 pixels down. So that's the effect of changing this value. And if we change this value here, where we divide x by a number, that changes the frequency of our wave. And the same thing happens with noise. Now I'm dividing by 20, so the steps are smaller. So the wave goes up and down slower. If I do 30, even slower. If I would divide by a very big number, then it doesn't even make a complete cycle anymore. And here the same thing with the noise. If I divide by 100, then you can see that the change becomes less obvious. When we make these values smaller, then the step is larger and then the motion is faster.